Today, for our reading, our anchor text, we are going to be using the Journeys Student Magazine. We have finished all of the stories in all of the books that you guys have. So we are going to move into the Student Magazine for the next few weeks to the end of the year. The next section you will read is a story. Remember story structure? The main elements that make up story structure are characters, setting, and plot. Remember that the plot is made up of a series of events. We have a main problem or conflict, and then the events that lead to its solution or the resolution of the problem. Now, it's really important to note the relationship among all the story elements as you read. The setting and characters often will provide clues to help you determine the genre. Now, science fiction is often set in the future, and historical fiction is always set in the past. Realistic fiction has a setting that could be a real place and characters who could be real people. So remember that a story map is a useful tool to record story elements, especially the plot events. So your target skill is story structure. Your target strategy is to visualize. Remember that it is helpful to use story details to form pictures in your minds to visualize what you are reading. Creating those mental images about what you're reading will result in a deeper understanding of the events and ideas that the author is trying to convey in their words. And good readers use vivid descriptions, and good writers use vivid descriptions and sensory details to help their readers visualize story events. This is a realistic fiction story called The Girl Who Loved Spiders. It's beginning in your student magazine on page 4. Now, as I preview this selection, I read the title and look at the illustrations, and I notice that there's a picture with a boy and another girl looking at a spider web. I think she must be the girl that's in the title, and there are photographs of spiders included, so I think that this will be a story about a boy and a girl and spiders. I think the story will be realistic fiction, since the characters do look like real people. Go ahead and preview the selection. It starts on page 4 and ends on page 11. You're going to preview, you're going to predict, and then you're going to set your purpose based on what you learned during your preview and what you know from your own experiences. Your essential question is, how does exploring nature help our understanding of the world? That's the question that we're going to be thinking about while we preview, predict, and set our purpose. You can pause the video now. If I were to set a purpose for reading, when I think of spiders, I think they are both interesting and scary. I don't like them very much. So I'm going to read this story to see how the characters feel about the spiders. What is your reason and your purpose for reading this story? All right, you are going to pause the video. You're going to start reading here on page 4, and you will end on page 11. Make sure to come back to the video once you're finished reading, and we are going to think through the text together. All right. Remember, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I need you to pause the video after each one and have a short discussion with your learning adult at home based on what you just read. Who is telling this story, and how can you tell? What point of view is this? How does Lewis feel about moving to Florida? And what does he do and say that helps you figure out how he feels? What are the steps for photographing a web? Use the information from Louise's observation and from the caption. What do Lewis and Ashanti think of each other when they first meet? Judging from what Ashanti says and does, what can you tell about her? Why do you think Lewis's mom and Ashante's mom hit it off? How does the first meeting of the mothers compare to the first meeting of the children? How do Lewis and Ashante feel about the families getting together for dinner? What can you infer about Ashante's family? What happens to make Lewis less afraid of spiders? How does Lewis change by the end of the story? Now we're going to dig deeper and analyze and visualize the text. Thinking about how the different story elements work together are going to help us to provide a clear structure to understand the story better. Okay, these are going to be a series of questions. Again, I would like you to pause the video and have a short discussion with your learning adult. All right, the setting tells when and where the story takes place. What is the setting of this story? The characters are the people or animals in a story, and they create the action. Who are the main characters, and how do you know? A story conflict is a problem or struggle faced by the characters. Maybe a problem between two or more characters, or a struggle that just one character faces. What type of problem or conflict does Lewis face? Understanding characters can help readers predict what problem the characters will confront. Why might a good reader predict that a problem will arise between Lewis and Ashante? The solution or resolution is the way the characters solve the problem. Does Lewis solve his problem? And which story details lead you to your conclusion? In addition to character setting and plot, a story structure has a beginning, middle, and an end. What happens in this story's beginning, middle, and end? If you visualize what's happening in a story, you create a picture of it in your head. What do you visualize happening after Ashante falls into the spider's web? Often the way a reader visualizes a story differs from the way the illustrator has pictured it. How does what you visualize happening differ from the story's illustrations?